Good afternoon now, everyone. How are you all doing? Thank you all for joining us on this February 10th for the Army Reserve Family Program Shop Talk. Today, we have a couple of good presentations for you today. No, we don't. Let me quit saying that. We have two great presentations for you today. First and foremost, before we get started, I'd like to see if you want to say a couple of words from the Army Reserve Senior Volunteer, Mr. John McCarthy. Sir?
Thanks, James, and I appreciate Ms. Grady coming on and giving us an update today. And the timing could not have been better. I was talking to Army Reserve company commanders and first sergeants yesterday morning, and one of the first sergeants mentioned that one of his soldiers he was sleeping out of his car and was detained by the local authorities, and they're doing their darndest to try to help this soldier. And you know, I think that this is a perfect organization in order to help not only soldiers but family members. And I'm hopeful that we can figure out a way to advertise it better, so that commanders at the lowest level knows about this. And I've asked through Major Buchanan if Ms. Grady could put together a couple of slides for the company commander and first sergeant course, that it can be included in my briefing, and then they'll know the points of contact. So Ms. Grady, thank you very much for being here today, and I'll shut up now. Over.
Roger that, sir. So as a great segue already, today our first presentation will be from our Private Public Partnership Office, that we affectionately know them as P30. And providing this presentation is the director of P30, Miss Alicia Grady. Ma'am, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much, James and Mr. McCarthy. Appreciate it. And I, did this briefing, I'm going to say, oh gosh, at least 6-7 months ago, when we were just really, getting the program re-energized. And I will tell you that a lot has happened in the last 6 months. One of the good news, and we're going to talk about this in depth, is that, our contract was awarded, which places, gives us 40 contract staff, 2 of which we have on the call today. Mike Schultz, who is a retired Command Sergeant Major Schultz from the Army Reserve, and then also Ron Young, who is employer engagement, and he works with me in having discussions, in building our employer portfolio for this program. So we'll jump right into it. Next slide. Oh, and I neglected to mention, in case you didn't notice on that first slide, you don't have to go back, but we did change our logo. So rebranding, and Mr. McCarthy, in terms of, getting this information out, I am happy to announce that my public affairs major is on board and has gotten all our socials back up and running. And we're going to be working on a lot of media content so that we can do a better job of advertising this program. The senior leadership is all been briefed and well aware. And to your point, exactly, we need to get this information and job opportunities in the hands of our soldiers and our families. So the mission and the end state and our key tasks have not changed since the last time I gave this presentation. So we can just move on from this. Next slide. The org chart is much better than it was the last time, because we are now fully staffed, which is wonderful, because we really are, don't like to use the word busy, but we are busy. So I have my green suit staff all in place. Like I said, our public affairs major just came on board about 3 weeks ago, so he is getting all spun up. He is down at USARC, which is good, because he has full access to the public affairs team and all the media opportunities down there. So that's a good place for him to be. We still have our OSD ESGR liaison, Ms. Collins. She is very, instrumental in our team in making sure that commanders and soldiers receive the ESGR training so that they understand their rights and responsibilities under the USERRA Act. But she also serves as a liaison between employers who need orders verification or exemptions to the 5-year rule. And then Ms. Jenkins provides support from the Human Resource Command with the VOW Act requirements for transition assistance. So she keeps us on track with those requirements. And then the contract staff, this is, like I said, the big news for us. So we have Mike Schultz as the program manager, and he is here at OCAR along with Ron Young. And then we also have Toshoa Miffin. She is the program and data analyst. And so one of the things that is very important to us to be able to show not only success, but also return on investment is that we are doing and tracking good metrics. And so we've spent a lot of time making sure that we're tracking data that the commanders want to see, but also that we can show that we are, getting our soldiers and our family members hired. It's one thing to say that we have all these, employer partners that want to hire our soldiers and families. It's another thing to show the results that they're actually getting jobs. And then we'll go into the locations of all the contract staff. Next slide.
Ms. Grady, quick question.
Yes.
Really, when I looked at this as a read ahead, the last chart, you don't have to go back. What a great news story that you're getting the butts in the chairs to support the soldiers and families. The question I have is for for your green suitors, are they there for like 2 years or 3 years, or are you getting them for 1 year at a time?
3 years.
Excellent.
Yes.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And so I'm going to turn it over to Mike, and he's going to walk you through the contractor locations, their areas of responsibility, and then also, what their functions are. So go ahead, Mike.
Okay, ma'am. Thanks, and good afternoon to everyone. Excited personally to be back with the Army Reserve in this capacity, serving our soldiers and their family members. And so, as Ms. Grady said, this is where, if looking at the map, is where all our contractors are located in the field. And then, as she stated on the org chart, the 3 of us are up there at Fort Belvoir. And then everything in red is depicted at our Army Readiness Specialist leads are at the RD, so the readiness divisions out there, as you can see on the map. So they're there directly working with the RDs, and then in white is our Army Readiness Specialists that are working on active duty installations, and then in blue, they're at our reserve centers, and then we have 6 that are TRLs, that are our Transition Readiness Liaisons, and they work at our TAP centers on the active duty installations. So we've got those 6. We've got them at Bragg, Fort Stewart, Hood, moving right to left at Bliss, and then JBLM out there in Washington, and then Schofield Barracks. So that's where they're arrayed across the Army Reserve and across CONUS and OCONUS, so that is covered for us. And then I'll show you on the next slide here. Basically, we're calling it zones. So next slide, please. So what we did is we looked at the current map for CONUS and obviously OCONUS, where our folks are with the 37 contractors out in the field. And what we tried to do is we modeled the Army Reserve Ambassador, their website on the Army Reserve website, but taking basically the geographical areas and by coverages and where they're at now. Currently, we divided the ARS responsibilities into zones. So that is the zones or the coverage areas for our current ARSs that are out there. So you could see we basically zoned them all the way through 30. And if a Army Reserve soldier is, I'll use Florida from where I'm from. So if you looked at an Army Reserve soldier that is looking for employment in the state of Florida around the Orlando area, they would go to the P30 website. So we're in the process of standing that virtual map up, like the Army Reserve Ambassador map, where you're clicking on it by states. So they would click on for Orlando, that zone 13. In this case, they would click on the state of Florida and it would bring up Tanya Velasquez that handles that area of responsibility. And so that's how we're arrayed across by zones. A lot of it's going to be warm handoffs that we're doing between the TRL sites, the TAP centers, and with our ARSs. So, again, it is definitely a team effort, and really what we're looking for is we're now standing this program obviously back up is the partnerships that we're going to build out in these locations. So obviously with family programs, with our Army Reserve Careers Group, folks that are in those reserve centers where they're located. There's multiple partners that are out there, but any questions about the zones or where our folks are located?
Hey, Mr. Schultz.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I mean, not really a question or a comment on the zones themselves. I'm sure you guys put a lot of thought into it. Do you think it would be useful? And I see 2 slides later, I see that map that you're talking about where you can click on it. Do you think it would be useful if you shared that link somehow, I'm not sure, with the Army Reserve Family Programs so that they can have it on their page? Because the one first sergeant that I talked to yesterday, he didn't, he's like, yeah, we were working with family programs and SFRGs, and even though I know it's a commander's responsibility to help soldiers in need, you might get more business if you think it's useful to share it on the family programs page. Over.
Yeah, no, sir, absolutely. And obviously, we're defer to Miss Grady on all those. But I mean, again, this is about partnerships, and especially now.
I apologize. I didn't mean to step on Miss Grady's toes.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, but I mean, ultimately, that's really, I mean, again, it is our number one priority is to get the word out for our contractors out in the field that P30 is back up and running. So we're asking them at these locations to start making contact on the ground and making calls to their AORs, to those facilities and command teams that are out there to let them know we're back. And then simultaneously making contact with the partners, those family programs, reps that are in their areas, as well as Army Reserve ambassadors, as well as our employers that they're going to eventually be working with. But it's really about, as I've, traveled around and just talking to people, unaware that the program's standing back up. So obviously we're trying to get that out there to everybody. And we talked the STRATCOM piece, but it's really just getting our partners to help carry the message as well too, sir.
Okay, we have a question for Ms. Redmond. Ms. Redmond.
So I was wondering why Ohio doesn't have anybody yet. We haven't had a representative in the last 2 years for the state of Ohio. Are we supposed to use Pennsylvania in the meantime until we get Ohio representative?
Yes, so this is dated. And we do have someone, Rosemary Miller will be covering Ohio, ma'am. So she will be your representative. We're going to update this map now. So within the last couple weeks, we've had additional hires. So we're in the process of looking at the zones and kind of reconfiguring a couple. But this was in the last week for Rosemary coming on board at Ohio. So she'll cover Ohio.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah, just for everybody's essay, and I know some of, the family program staff, were around, in when P30 was functioning before, and there were, significantly more contract staff across the footprint. Because of funding, we were not able to go back up to that level. And so, we're at 40. And Mike and I and his team, sat down and really looked at, what's the best distribution of workload for these folks in terms of number of units in a footprint and also number of packs in a footprint. Because we didn't want one person to have so many that they couldn't handle it and then someone else not having, enough workload. And so, this will be fluid as we move forward with this and see, you know, where we may need to make some adjustments in terms of how these are mapped out. So expect that there'll be a few iterations of how the work is distributed. And then the other piece of it is, you know, like we mentioned, is those connections is so important with the family programs. You know, we share job opportunities. I send out at least weekly to your distro list job opportunities. But the other thing is we're also targeting areas. So as an example, when we have an employer, if they're in a specific, you know, hiring in a specific geographical location, we want to really target that area. Or if they're requesting a specific skill set, we want to hire, you know, we want to target that area. So, you know, a few little nuances that are a little different from what you have seen in the past, and just, you know, getting more technologically savvy as well, because we have, you know, those things available to us. So, Mike, did you have anything else on this?
Yeah, and just in closing on the map, so every position, there's a couple as I'm looking at it are to be determined. Every position is filled now. So we will go back and update these maps. It's in the process of being, like I said, the virtual map done. You start completing that for us. So everybody will hopefully go live here within the next week to no more than 2 weeks. And that's all I have, ma'am. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Robinson has a question, sir.
Yes, good morning. Thank you for the opportunity. I hope this hasn't been asked already because I just got on board. But now, are your people in the field, do they share that information across boundaries, across regions, or they only receive those opportunities in the areas in which they are responsible for, in their area of responsibility?
It's shared with all.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, all those opportunities are shared with everyone, and we will, we're in the process of putting together the partner listing, and I'll get into this in the next slide, but we've engaged probably close to over 60 partners at this point, where we have, you know, vetted them, have had conversations with them in terms of what, you know, we're looking for them to be, you know, hiring our soldiers and our family members, and also, you know, what are they looking for, so that we have that mutually beneficial relationship. And I'll go into that a little bit more, but yes, we share the information across with all of them.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Okay, Mike, you good?
Yes, ma'am. Thanks.
Okay, thanks. Next slide. So this isn't any different either, and we touched on some of these things already, but the one thing I do want to add is that, you know, we could literally have hundreds of employers signed on with us, which is great. But my philosophy is that if you just push you know, those out to the masses, that doesn't necessarily mean that people are going to gravitate to it or grab onto it. And as an example, you know, we have some partners out there like, you know, Vet Jobs and no disrespect, Sandy, and, you know, Recruit Military, that have job boards that have literally hundreds of thousands of jobs on there. We're trying to take a different approach and make this an individualized, you know, let us customize a career path for you, you know, so sitting down, having that 101, and that's where that referral piece comes in, you know, with the family programs and our folks, that back and forth communication and warm handoff, so that if you have somebody, you know, a spouse who's looking for a specific career field, you know, reach out to our point of contact, and we want to build and customize. You know, and that's how we're having the conversations with employers. You know, what do you bring to the table for our folks? And then what do we bring to the table for you? So we can do a intentional build out of a career path. If it's, and a lot of these companies now are offering training programs for licensure, for certification. Companies are desperate to hire our soldiers and our spouses. And so they are willing to foot the bill for internships, apprentice programs. And those are the types of companies that we want to go after. We want those who are going to provide us with some tangible benefit that's going to make that soldier or that family member successful in a career path. And so, you know, that information exchange is really critical. So we're putting the final touches on the list. I can tell you just myself alone engaged with close to 30 different companies in a 6-week period. So word is out that we are back up and running. Companies are willing, you know, ready to engage with us. But again, that vetting process is very important to us. If you can go to the next slide. So this goes to the point, Mr. McCarthy, about the interactive map. We are in the process of building this out with the folks down at USARC because they own the web page. So there's a lot of behind the scenes work that has to occur to get this map back up, you know, and the intent is to kind of mirror the Army Reserve Ambassador feature where you click on a state or an area. And then the people who are in that state or area, then their contact information will pop up. And so I'm sure there's a way for us to link this with the family programs page. So I'll have the folks down at USARC get with Colonel DiDonato and his folks to see how do we make that cross pollination there between those pages. Because you're right. I mean, you land on the family programs page and you're looking for something specific. If you see that and you don't know about P3, there's a link there, you know, and vice versa. So we'll definitely take that on because I'm sure it's doable.
Thanks. If I heard Mike correctly, you think, or his assessment, current assessment, I know it changes, is probably about 1 March. The site will be up, the interactive map, roughly.
That's
I'm not
what
going to
we're
hold you
hoping.
to it. He said a couple weeks, and I know things change. Is that what you're shooting for, though?
So the map that Mike showed you, that one is being updated. That's easy to do because we do that internally on a PowerPoint. This interactive map on the web page is probably going to take a little bit longer just because of what it takes to build it, you know, behind the scenes. You know, the capability is there. It's just, you know, working with the folks that manage the web page. We have some capabilities. My folks have some capabilities to make updates to this, but we don't have all the capabilities. And so, you know, it's just working in concert with the webmaster to get this all built out.
Tracking. Thanks.
Yep. Next slide. So these are some of the partners. One of the things I do want to mention and give Sandy a shout out from Vet Jobs is we're working with them so that we can have an exclusive link on our page for a job board that is specific to the partners that we have vetted and signed on with. And so that we can direct, as I mentioned before, when we have soldiers or family members coming to us for employment opportunities, we can direct them to those companies or apprentice programs in that career field that they're looking for so that they don't have to scour hundreds of thousands of jobs and hope they come across the one that they want. And that's why I mean we're being very deliberate about this. And so honestly, thanks to Sandy, because they have that technology capability that we don't have. And so we're working really closely with Sandy and his crew to get that built out. So I'm really excited about that because it gives us also a lot of behind the scenes capabilities that we need in terms of metrics and how we do client tracking when we're working with our clients. And, you know, it's that start to finish capability that's going to give us so that we know, you know, Sergeant Snuffy comes in, he's looking for a job. We can track, you know, that first contact to, you know, did you need resume training or LinkedIn training? Did you get an interview? Who did you interview with? Did you get a job? So we're going to be able to follow that client throughout the entire process and then follow up, you know, how's it going? You know, that kind of thing. So we're really excited about that. So I'm just, we have a lot of big ticket items on our plate that we're working, and it's all coming together. And so I'm just really excited to be in the space that we're in right now. Questions or comments before I move on? Okay, next slide. This, just to reemphasize, ESGR training is available on our webpage. I encourage, if you to message this with your command teams, because it is a really good training. It does cover all the rights and responsibilities and kind of the how-tos to navigate if you're having any issues with, if a soldier is having an issue with an employer. And then the last slide, I think it's the last slide. Next slide. Again, this just reemphasizes some of those virtual connections. And this, obviously, since I submitted this, James, sorry, I didn't get you a more updated version. I will get that to you. We are now on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube is coming. So I will get an updated slide to you that has all our social media platforms. And I think that is it.
Roger that. Would that be today? So, because I usually send out the slide deck as well as the URL of this recording on the same day we do it. Would I get that from you sometime today, ma'am?
As soon as we are finished this shop talk, it will be in your inbox.
Outstanding. So when you get the slide deck today, ladies and gentlemen, you have the most up-to-date current slide deck. Over.
Yes. And that's all I have, unless anyone has any final comments or questions.
Hey, Ms. Grady, two askers, please. One would be, the first asker is, could you send me, and I don't need it anytime soon, but could you send actually Major Buchanan one slide that kind of gives, that I can use at the pre-command course, both at Leavenworth and when I'm talking to company commanders and first sergeants, and how it'll be a shameless plug. I do it for family programs, and I'd be more than happy to do it for you. And then the second asker, and I don't know if James can do it. Yeah, this would actually be for James. Could you resend to me the updated slides so that I can share them on the Senior Spouse Facebook page, please?
Yes, sir. I'll send it when I get the updated slide deck from Ms. Grady. I'll send the updated slide deck as well as the URL of the YouTube recording to everyone this afternoon, sir.
Thanks, and I'm gonna like you on Facebook and follow you guys on Facebook. And I think you've come leaps and bounds. Certainly, when Ms. Grady, when we met in your office, I didn't think you'd be at this point in 6 months. And so congratulations. And I know, it takes time, but you're further than I thought you would be. So this is good. Cool. Thank you. And you too, Mike. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Appreciate that.
Okay, so at this time, do we have any further questions for Ms. Grady or Mr. Schultz from the P30 team? Well, I think they'll be around for a little bit longer in case something else comes to you at a later date or during this meeting or whatever. So we're gonna move on to our next presentation. We get a lot of telephone calls from individuals in the field saying, well, who's that? Who is this? Family programs also trying to grow up and grow out and improve the services and the people we have on our staff to assist you on our day-to-day endeavors. So without any further ado, I'm gonna introduce you to the Deputy Director of Family Programs, Mr. Mufu Taiwo, and what he's going to do is introduce you to the family program staff, old and new. Mr. Taiwo, the floor is yours, sir.
Good morning, good afternoon, and in one case, good evening. That's to the folks up there in Germany. I have a couple of administrative remarks. First of all, let me thank Ms. Grady for that presentation. Every time I hear that presentation, you give me something to think about as a resource. Thank you again for what you do for Army Reserve soldiers and family members. Second of all, let me thank the volunteers that took their time to come up on here today. Again, volunteers, we can't do what we do without your support. I see all of you as a weapon system that we can employ, to take care of soldiers and family members. at the appropriate time. And thirdly, let me thank the community partners that came on here today. Vet Jobs, love what your organization stands for, and please, please, please continue to support us. I know that goes without saying, you guys, your organization is outstanding. And lastly, let me thank the Army Reserve Family Programs professional staff, the folks here in the headquarters, and those great Americans out there in the field. Every day I hear of what you do to take care of soldiers and family members. Just recently, one just came to mind, got some attention. But again, thank you for what you do. Outstanding. My last administrative remark, Army Reserve Family Program headquarters staff, when I mention your name, please raise your hand so that the individuals that are on this call can identify who you are, and if they want to send you a note, they have your highlighted button. So first of all, without further ado, let me introduce the director of Army Reserve Family Programs, Colonel Donato. I believe everybody knows him. Supporting us in this endeavor is our contractor, Mr. Joseph Butters. He's one of our unsung heroes. He is there. He keeps us straight in the digital arena. The updates to the insecurity, the food insecurity webpage, as well as our COVID-19 resource webpage, was his vision. We gave some guidance, and we couldn't have done that without him. Thank you, Mr. Butters, for what you do. The next person needs no introduction. He mentioned old. I think he's talking for himself. That is Mr. James Cowser. Mr. James Cowser handles our training line of effort and our volunteer line of effort. And that's why you hear him on these calls every month, coordinating all actions. When he does his job well, no one notices. And he is another one of our unsung heroes in terms as to taking care of all things training, which I'm hoping as the conditions change that we'll get back to on a regular basis. And just as important as training is the volunteer effort that we oversee out here at the headquarters, manage by, with, and through those family programs professionals at Echelon that are on this call. The next I'd like to introduce is the Yellow Ribbon team. They handle all of our deployment efforts in terms as to hosting these Yellow Ribbon events for those mobilizing and deploying soldiers and units. Captain Hugger and Ms. O'Neill, you can raise your hand. So any questions about Yellow Ribbon volunteers? I've spoken to some of you before at these Yellow Ribbon events. I would recommend that if you wish to volunteer at some of these events, your access or POC for this is Captain Hugger and Ms. O'Neill, as well as the family programs professionals at the readiness divisions who can actually assist you with that. We would love to have you. The next program I'd like to introduce is the Survivor Outreach Services Program Manager. That is Lieutenant Colonel Christopher Crowley. So this is one of those sensitive programs that is near and dear to my heart because they provide services to the fallen, to their service member, to the spouse or family member of the fallen. It is one of those sacred duties that that we do it well, and we ensure that survivors are treated with dignity and respect, and no request from a survivor is ever too great. Christopher Crowley is our POC for that, and he helps manage the support coordinators that are assigned to the readiness divisions to ensure that this sacred task is accomplished. On to emerging requirements here, Child and Youth Services. Captain Sabrina Brooks, please raise your hand. So the Army Reserves is exploring opportunities to provide childcare solutions to Army Reserve soldiers. We are looking at several options moving forward to help with this post a referral stage, which is what we're currently in right now. So any questions about Child and Youth Services, Captain Brooks, and of course, listed there is a Lieutenant Colonel Dana Fogg, who's out the office. And lastly, financial readiness. Lieutenant Colonel Kang and Captain Harris, please raise your hands. So a little background here on financial readiness. Department of Defense has recognized that there is some financial issues facing service members. Looking at the Army Reserve construct, chances are that we have more of an issue with finances than our active component. Active component, everybody knows, gets a regular paycheck every 2 weeks. The reserve component on a different scale is impacted greatly by the economy, job upturn, economic downturns, on and on and on. Financial readiness is aimed at educating those soldiers from throughout their course of the military career, from when they first enter basic training or basic officer leader course to when they either ETS or retire. And in between, they have some soldier milestones that they have to conduct some type of financial literacy training in order to best be informed as to financial resources, financial decisions that can ultimately positively impact the financial picture, but at the same time, positively impact unit readiness. And then lastly, again, I have Lieutenant Colonel Kang, who handles Army Family Action Plan at the bottom. He is our POC as we reinvigorate the AFAP process, working closely with the units, input from the volunteers and soldiers and family members as to what those issues are that are impacting the Army Reserves. He will help corral those issues, put it into the AFAP process so that we can help to solve those issues at the lowest level. If it can't be solved, we will elevate it as appropriate. Pending your questions, that is my introduction of the Headquarters Army Reserve Family Programs. And I just got reminded, thank you, Mr. Kauser. Lastly, the person that keeps me straight is Mr. Edwards. He's our support specialist. He is the glue that keeps things running around here and keeps me out of trouble in terms of administrative matters. He's one of our quiet professionals that gets the job done and will not hesitate to provide all his time to take care of an issue. So ladies and gentlemen, that is the team here at the headquarters, as well as if you look on your screens, we also have some members from the field that are here. This concludes my portion of this briefing. Over to you, Mr. Kauser.
Hey, James, let me just jump in. Hey, Mr. Taiwo, thank you for providing that overview. Obviously, as our portfolio expands, our staff will expand as well. So it's good for occasionally for us to introduce the new lines of efforts and programs, as well as the staff members associated with those programs to the field. So thank you for providing that overview. And I personally want to thank all the individuals who are on this call, whether we interact and engage with you internally or externally, because you are all where the rubber meets the road. You are all the one that are interacting with these soldiers and family members on a daily basis. And obviously we are here to support you all. So thank you for all what you do in supporting our soldiers and family members. That's all I have. James, Mr. McCarthy, any closing comments?
John, yeah, thanks. And Mr. Taiwo, thanks for the update. John, I do have an asker, and I don't need it every time you like if you're getting new people in or losing people, within a week or two, when things settle down, if you could have someone send me or send Major Buchanan this chart when it's updated. I don't need it like if it's there once a week. I don't need it once a week because I put that in my continuity book that I'm building for whoever comes in after me, and that it has a space.
No problem. Can you do?
Appreciate it. And I don't know if the I'm sorry, I made a note. If vet jobs was going, there's another briefing today with vet jobs, but I appreciate Miss Sandy for coming on board, and yeah, and thank you. And be safe out there, everyone. I'll stand by.
I see we have a question from Mr. Young, sir.
Hey, sir, great briefings today. Just a question about family programs. Do you have a contact listing? I mean, I see all the names on the organizational charts. I don't see any phone numbers or any emails. Do you have a contact listing that you can send to folks on the line today?
Sir, yes, we do. We have it on our website that has listing not only for the headquarters staff, but also for those individuals out in the readiness division in the field. And I can put the link on the email I sent out today to remind everyone of our website, and go out there and find out who we all are and what we do.
Sir, that's great. And you've acknowledged I sent you the POC, the contact list for all the P3 contractors in the field. So I
Yes, sir.
understand that you're going to.
That will go out today when I send out the URL for this recording, as well as the updated slide deck. Thank you a lot, Ms. Grady. I already got it. And so when I get this ready and uploaded to YouTube, that will be one of the attachments to the email. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, before we go any further, if you all remember back in July of this past year or July of every year, I send an email out to all the readiness divisions as basically a tasker or whatever, requesting their submissions for the Department of Defense Reserve Family Readiness Award winner for the Army Reserve. And this year's recipient comes out of the 88th Readiness Division, Captain Doms, who is the commander of the 423rd Transportation Company, within the 88th, close by Fort Carson, Colorado, about 88th RD was this year's Army Reserve winner. So if you get an opportunity, if you're a member of staff, whatever, and you talk to anyone from that region, congratulate the 423rd Transportation Company as being selected as the 2021 Army Reserve Family Readiness Award winner. Cool? Woohoo! Thank you. I love some enthusiasm. It make my day.
Awesome.
And I just thank that unit as well as the FRSA or the Family Programs Coordinator or Director, the professionals that work with their organization and their efforts of supporting soldiers and families throughout the entire year, especially during the pandemic. This is extremely difficult to get out and give of yourself and take care of other soldiers and family members to ensure that their quality of life has increased. So thank you, all the members of this great team. Thank you all today for joining us. And if there are no further questions for me or anyone else on this call, we can go ahead and end this call. And I look forward to seeing you all next month. Remember, the Family Readiness Shop, the Family Program Shop Talk takes place the second Thursday of every month at 12 noon using Microsoft Teams. And if you're not available for the actual call, I will post the call on YouTube by the end of the day. Thank you very much and have a great day.
Thanks, James. Have a good day.
Always. Thanks a lot,
Thanks
Peg.
all.
Thank you all.
Take care.